Hey everyone, Mike here with the Sysadmin Guru, and today I wanted to bring you a new class, essentially. It's a tiny class, it's not that long, and it's going to talk about different types of scams. That's really what I'm going to go over here. So we all know to be cautious of things that look like scams, but kind of as with anything, technology, security, scams eventually evolve, and scammers use new tactics to try and take your hard-earned money. Because let's be honest, that's the goal of a scammer, is to take your money. Over the last 6 months, I've kind of been studying some different types of scams and different tactics that scammers use. So during this little lecture here, probably 30 to 45 minutes or so, I'm going to go over the different types of scams out there. Some I'm sure you've heard of, and some you may not have heard of, and how you can help protect yourself and your loved ones from these scams. So as these scams evolve, I believe that awareness with a little bit of paranoia is the best way to protect yourself. So let's get started. So I'm sure we all met this guy here. He's that lovely Nigerian prince that we continually get emails from that wants to send us money. If you don't know, this image is from the movie Coming to America. And basically, the way this scam works is you receive an email from someone claiming to be a prince, a relative of a prince, or working for a prince. And they explain that for some reason, they are in desperate need of help. And they will transfer a large sum of money if you hold it for them and protect it within the U.S., because they want it protected from, the African government, the Spanish government, wherever this email is originating from. They're trying to protect it from somebody, so they want to transfer it to you. And then, you get this money, you receive a good commission off of doing this for them. Typically, if you agree, the scammer will then asking for your banking information so that they can transfer the money to you. Really, this is just used for identity fraud later on and to try to get your money. They may even go as far as to actually send you a fake check. And that fake check, they'll then say, well, deposit the check and then send us this amount of money because, keep your amount. And then obviously the check is bogus. So by the time that you figure out the check is bogus, you've already transferred the money and you're out, plus whatever your bank charges you for a bad check. Now, while this scam really was kind of been known as the Nigerian prince scam, it's actually called an advanced fee scam, where anytime you have to pay an advanced fee to get money, to receive money from somebody. That's really how this works. And the scam itself actually dates back to the 19th century with a similar scam called the Spanish prisoner. Now, obviously, there was no email involved in that, but the way the scam works is the same. So what are the different tactics that this scam is utilized? First tactic is volume. And I say this because it's an email scam. Scammers are able to send out enormous amounts of emails with little to no cost. So if they send out 1 million emails and get a 0.01% response, 1/100th% response, that's still 100 people. The second is greed. And I'm not trying to say this in a bad way, but to be honest, who doesn't want an extra $1 million in their bank account? I sure know I would. But they rely on that greed, that basic human kind of greed, to entice their victims. And the last tactic is urgency. They attempt to make the email seem urgent, as if this time is of the essence because the prince is being held captive, or we really need to get this money out before it's seized by the government. So those kind of things really make the email seem urgent. And as I go through this, you'll see some pretty similar patterns here in terms of the tactics being used. So how do we protect ourselves from this type of scam? Well, the best way is recognition. If we recognize the scam right away, we can just delete the email, or we can just hang up the phone call. We also want to protect our personal information. Now, I know this goes without saying, but I've been very surprised by the amount of information that someone has given out either unknowingly or given out to someone that they felt was credible. And lastly, avoid upfront payments to strangers, especially if they're via money order, wire transfer, or gift cards. Those are the types of payments that are virtually untraceable, which is why scammers love them. So let's move on to the next scam, which is the IRS scam. So the IRS scam will typically take on two forms, but will almost always start with a cold call from either a robodialer or someone claiming to be from the IRS. Once they have you on the phone, one of two things will happen. First, they will claim that you have unpaid back taxes, typically in the thousands of dollars. They will attempt to get you to pay at least a portion of the amount with gift cards. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but that's kind of what they do. During this call, you will most likely be threatened with wage garnishes and arrest if you do not pay. Typically, they'll tell you that if you hang the phone call up with me, an arrest warrant will be issued for you and you will be arrested very soon. Police will come to your house and arrest you or come to your place of work. So they try to threaten you to make you pay. The second way this scam can take a turn is they can be offering you a refund. So they can say to the IRS and that they're offering you a refund and they want to collect some of your personal information, which they'll later use for identity theft. So they'll get your typical name, birthday, social security number. They'll probably even ask for your banking information so they could transfer you the refund. But they'll use all this just as a way of getting your information to then steal your identity later. So what kind of tactics are they using here in the IRS scam? Well, first and foremost, fear. Now, I wrote this in all caps for a reason, that is one of their main tactics in this type of scam, is they want to scare you. They want to make you think that you have unpaid back taxes and you're going to go to jail if you don't pay them. So they really want to put some fear in you. The fear of being audited by the IRS, the fear of owing a lot of money to the IRS, and the fear of going to jail. Now, when you combine that fear with urgency, which is the next tactic they use, you really have a bad combination. Because when someone is scared and they have very little time to make a decision or they're being pressured into making a decision, they will typically make a bad decision. Now, the last tactic here is credibility. From the moment these people call you, from the moment you talk to them on the phone, they're doing everything they can to establish credibility. They're going to tell you they're officer so-and-so. They're going to tell you a badge number they want you to write down to try to, again, add to that credibility to make you really believe you were talking to who they say they are. And once you add all three of these together, it's really a dangerous combination. So once you've added fear, the urgency, you have to do this right now, and the fact that you think you're really talking to an IRS agent, the scammer can pretty much convince somebody to do almost anything they want. So with that being said, how do we protect ourselves from these types of scams? I'll go ahead and say it because it's not listed in here, but recognition. As I said in the previous one, recognition is very important. We need to recognize these scams right away so we can just hang up the phone call or we can just delete the email. No, the IRS will not call you out of the blue. The IRS does not typically communicate via phone calls. They communicate via email or via postage. They do not communicate via emails. They communicate via mail, regular snail mail, and they typically do that through certified mail. So you have to sign it that you have received the mail. So they will not call you out of the blue. We'll be trying to get in touch with you long before they would ever try to call you. So if you do receive a call from the true IRS, it should not be a surprise from you. But most likely you're not. You're going to be getting you're going to be getting snail mails, not emails, snail mails, certified letters from the IRS if you owe those back taxes. So next one is, don't call the number provided. So if you get a voicemail saying, hey, this is Officer so-and-so with the IRS, you have unpaid back taxes, we need you to call this number right away. Don't call that number. That's typically the number of the scammer. So there's no reason you don't want to call that back. If you believe this could be legit, if you're still unsure about whether this is real or not, go look up the number to the IRS. Go to the irs.gov website, the actual website of the IRS, and pull the number from there. Call that number. If you really do have unpaid back taxes, and that is how they're trying to get in touch with you, someone would be able to actually tell you and direct you to the proper person. Don't call the number that was left on your voicemail. Lastly, if you're uncertain and have been talking to a scammer, know the IRS will never ask you to pay back taxes by gift cards. Now, the scammer may not call them gift cards. The scammer may call them government tax vouchers or payment vouchers or something of that sort. But essentially, they're asking you to go to the store and buy an iTunes gift card or an Apple Play gift card is really what they're doing. Or they may ask you for a money order or a money pack from CVS or a wire transfer of some sort through Western Union or something else like that. Scammers love these types of payments because they're virtually untraceable. So once they've got that money, there's nothing really we can do about it. Note the IRS is never going to have you pay that way. IRS is going to have you pay by check or credit card. That's how they're going to have you pay. They're not going to have you pay through a gift card. So it may seem obvious, but like I said previously, once you mix those tactics, the fear and the urgency, you may not be thinking 100% clearly, and it may not dawn on you these red flags. So keep these in mind if you're ever called by someone claiming to be from the IRS. So the next scam is the Microsoft or tech support scam. This scam is typically initiated in one of two ways. The first is that you will receive a pop-up on your computer stating that you have a virus. Now, this pop-up came up because of a link you clicked on or a compromised ad being displayed on a website. Typically does not mean you actually have a virus. The other way is that you receive a phone call from someone claiming to be Microsoft tech support, telling you that your computer's been compromised and that it's sending out a lot of malicious traffic. However this scam is initiated, it results in you talking with someone claiming to be Microsoft tech support. Now, the scammer will try to convince you to allow them to connect to your computer. They will then try to convince you that normal errors and logs are actually malicious. Once they think they have you convinced, they will then offer you their support plans, which typically range from $300 to $600. Once you pay, they would spend very little time on the computer looking through your files, maybe running a couple of freeware programs, downloading some of your files if they see anything that's enticing like banking information or something like that, and then they'll tell you everything is fixed, where really they didn't do anything and there was nothing broken to begin with. On occasion, the scammer will actually lock you out of your computer. This is typically if they don't think you're going to pay. They'll lock you out of your computer, and then when you go in, they'll say, well, there's computers all screwed up now because of these viruses, and you need to pay us this money so we can fix your computer. That is to the extreme that they will go sometimes to try to take your money. One additional note I want to add onto this is that these scams are not limited to Microsoft. They can also apply to Macs, where the scammers actually claim to be from Apple. Typically, you see them more from people claiming to be Microsoft because Microsoft has more of a market share. But there are scammers out there that target Apple computers and pretend to be Apple support. So what tactics are they using here? Well, it's very similar to the IRS scam. They use fear. And the scammers want to scare you into thinking that your computer has been compromised. They also use urgency, typically telling you that this has to be fixed right away or your identity may be stolen. And they'll also use credibility. So same kind of tactics here. Because during the entire scam, they want you to believe they're working for Microsoft. And they're going to tell you all these things about your computer. They're going to run a bunch of commands that most people don't know about. And they're going to try to convince you that they actually know what they're doing, which typically they have no clue what they're doing. So how do we protect ourselves from these types of scams? And I've said it a few times, but it's still key. Recognition. If we recognize these scams before they even get started, we can just close the pop-up, or we can hang up the phone call or delete the voicemail. Know that Microsoft will never call you or ask you to call a number because Microsoft, one, they don't have the resources to be monitoring everybody's computer to then to call them specifically and say, hey, your computer is showing a virus or is having malicious data. And Microsoft's phone numbers change over so often. Microsoft is not going to put a number in their software to tell you to call it. It's just not right for them because that number is going to change eventually. And when that number changes, all their software is going to be pointing to an old number that's not going to work. So they're never going to actually put a phone number in a pop-up message to you. And lastly, never let a stranger remotely connect your computer. Once the scammer is connected, there is quite a bit they can do very quickly to lock you out of your computer. And then it becomes a ransom call, as I mentioned earlier, where, oh, your computer's all busted now, we got to fix this, and you got to pay us before we can fix it. So if you do get these pop-ups and you're unsure, the best option is to contact somebody who is local, someone you know, someone you trust, a family friend who's good with computers, a local repair shop, somebody that, again, is local and can help you out with these types of things. They will very quickly be able to tell whether this is a legitimate virus pop-up or whether it's something that's fake. Refund scams can be very clever. These scams can be targeted to people who fell for the previous tech support scams. In this scam, the scammer calls you and tells you that they work for a computer company that you've purchased services from, and now that company's going out of business, so they'd like to refund you your money. So, who wouldn't want to get a little extra money back from a service they either don't remember purchasing or a service that they regret purchasing a while back? Once the scammer has you agree to the refund, they will want to remote into your computer so they can initiate the transfer. They may tell you to log into your bank account so they can transfer the money. The payoff for the scammer really can be a few different things. One I have seen is that the scammer pretends to refund you back more. So instead of refunding you $500, they refund you $5,000 and then ask you to repay the $4,500 extra. Now, of course, they didn't refund you the $5,000. They're just trying to make you believe they did. If they're logged into your computer, from that point, they may also be gathering additional information about you and your banking information. Another way, but similar, is they send you a phony check for $5,000 when your refund was only $500. Then they demand you send them back the extra $4,500. Of course, the check is phony, but that may take a few days for the bank to notice. Then the victim is out $4,500 plus whatever fees the bank charges them for the phony check. So, what tactics are they using? The first tactic that they're using in this scam, and you may have guessed it, greed. And again, I'm not saying this in a bad way. Who wouldn't want to get some money back from a service that they purchased, they forgot they purchased, or they even regretted purchasing? Next is urgency. And the urgency is not on the refund. The urgency comes later. The urgency comes when the mistake happens by the scammer refunding you too much money. At that point, it's the urgency. Oh my God, we got to get that money back because I accidentally gave you too much money. Or you did something that refunded you too much money. Then there's sympathy. So, and sympathy in here because I've heard many audio calls where the scammer, after they pretend they refunded you too much money, they bring up this entire sob story of, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this. I'm going to get fired, all this other stuff. So especially when you add in that urgency and the sympathy, you feel a little sorry for the scammer if the story was true. And you're going to do whatever you can to try to help him correct this error. So what can we do here? Well, obviously, recognition. I'm going to continue to beat this dead horse. Companies going out of business don't typically refund your money. Most companies don't have the money to refund if they were going out of business, so they're not going to refund you money. Don't, again, let strangers log into your computer or remote into your computer. They certainly, if it really was a refund, you wouldn't need them to log into your computer to transfer the money. They'd just be able to do it, or they'd already have all your information. So don't let a stranger log into your computer, and especially don't bring up banking information or any of that kind of stuff while a person is logged into your computer. Court fine scam. In this scam, you receive a phone call from a sheriff. The sheriff's name is typically a real sheriff's name. And if you look up the number the scammer's calling from, it typically is the number of the courthouse because they're faking it. They're doing what's called spoofing the phone number. The scammer will tell you that you missed jury duty this morning and that you need to go to the courthouse to settle up fines that you have. They may even tell you that there's a warrant out for your arrest. From here, the scam can take a couple different turns. One, the scammer may ask you to verify your information and ask for your social security number, your date of birth, and other private information that they'll use later on for identity theft. The second way, the scammer will direct you to go to the bank and withdraw money to take care of your fines. This typically can be between $1,000 to $1,500. Then they may direct you to go to a CVS or a Walmart and purchase a money pack or a gift card from that store. Once the card is purchased, they'll ask for the information on the back of the card and tell you to meet them at the courthouse. Obviously, they have the information on the back of the card, so they don't need to meet you at the courthouse. Most of them are not even going to be in this state. But once they have that information, they're going to go withdraw the money off of those accounts, off of those cards, and you're out the amount of money that you spent. And no one will ever show up at the courthouse for you. So what tactics are they using here? And this is very similar to the IRS scam in that they're using fear. Anytime someone's telling you that there's a warrant out for your arrest, is going to put a little bit of fear in you. No one wants to go to jail, and you mix that with the urgency from the IRS scam, and now again you have that kind of dangerous combination of fear and urgency. You're scared that you really missed court duty and that there really are fines you have to take care of, and now there's an urgency. You've got to get them taken care of right away. Lastly is credibility. Now this goes back again to the IRS scam. From the time these scammers call you, they are earning credibility. They're trying to earn credibility. They're going to tell you they're, officer so-and-so, which is someone they probably looked up. So they have a legitimate sheriff's officer's name. They may give you a badge number. They are calling from a number that they're faking. So they're spoofing a number. So if you look that number up, it may actually be the courthouse. So from the time they get you on the phone, they're just pounding away trying to earn that credibility. They may have your full name. They may even have your full address. So they try to build a lot of credibility here to convince you, and that's why these three to me are such a dangerous combination of tactics. So what can we do to protect ourselves here? Well, you know the first one. So I'm just going to kind of say it, recognition, and we'll move on. Know that law enforcement will never call you for missed jury duty. If you miss jury duty, they're not going to call you and tell you missed jury duty, and they're not going to call you to tell you that you have warrants out for your arrest either. It's just not something that law enforcement officers do. Now, know that if you do have fines, they'll never be paid through a gift card or a money pack. These types of payments are major red flags for recognizing a scam. So if you believe you're being scammed by someone claiming to be a sheriff, but you're not 100% sure, hang up the phone, look up the official number for your sheriff's department or county court, and call that number. So the scammer may be able to fake the number they're dialing out from, but they cannot intercept the call if you call the actual number of the county courthouse or the sheriff's office. So if you're ever concerned about this, tell them you'll call them back. They will most likely want to give you a number to call back. Hang up the phone, and then call back to the actual number that you've looked up on your local sites, on one of the local websites. So this is the last one that I'm going to talk about, and I've talked about a lot about recognition, and I think employment scams are typically pretty easy to spot once you understand how they work. Typically with an employment scam, you will spot a help wanted ad or receive an email from a recruiter for a too good to be true work from home job. These postings will typically contain real companies or even government organizations. If you reply to the ad, you will quickly receive a reply stating that you are hired with no interview at all. This is why these are so easy to spot to me. Some typical positions that are used in these types of scams are work from home jobs, secret shopper, caregiver, administrative assistant, or customer service rep. Because these jobs are not typically ones that require a lot of experience or training or certifications to do. You may also be asked to pay money up front for training or for equipment to do your job. From there, you may be asked to provide personal details so that they can set up a direct deposit for you or run a credit check. Now, their payoff, obviously, for the scammer is obtaining your personal data, getting you to purchase equipment from them, or paying them up front for services or training that they say that you need to have. Obviously, you're not getting the job, you're not going to get paid back for this stuff. There is sometimes a refund scam that could weasel its way into this, and that you'll get a sign-on bonus. The company will overpay you your first check and ask you to wire the extra amount of money back to them or to somewhere else completely. These should be some good big red flags that you have an issue or you have an employment scam. So what tactics are they being used? Well, the first one I list is vulnerability. I list vulnerability because people who are looking for these types of jobs typically are vulnerable, and they're looking for a job. They've maybe been unemployed for a while. They're really looking for anything they can. The next one I have is urgency, and it's not really used as typical urgency, but the urgency may be implied by the person. If they're vulnerable looking for a job, this may seem like too good to be true. I need to jump on this right away. So there's some urgency there for them to act. And lastly, I put easy money, because some of these jobs are what would be considered easy money. Something maybe I can do on the side to earn a little extra income and not take up that much of my time and earn a good pay. So how do we protect ourselves from this type of scam? Well, we know the first one. Again, I'm going to say it, recognition, and I'll move on. Be cautious of strange procedures or anything that seems strange to you. Follow your gut on this one. This can include being hired without an interview, being required to purchase expensive equipment before you can start work, or requiring you to pay a fee for coaching or training before you start. If you do get an offer or a job opportunity, check it out on the company's official website. Companies always have their job postings, or typically have their job postings on their official website. Feel free to even call the company and check to make sure that the position that someone is telling you you're hired for is an actual open position at that company. I don't have it listed here, but know that a real recruiter will provide you with a complete contract for their services, which will also define who's responsible for who pays the recruiter if they got you a job. So that's all the information that I have. One site I wanted to list here that is a great resource is the site on Better Business Bureau has a scam tracker website. And this website is great because people can go in and they can actually type in different scams that either they've been a victim of or ones that have been attempted on them. So this is a site I like to go back to periodically, look through, and check to see when or if a scam has occurred. So with that being said, I'd like to thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments. Thank you.